Okay, next we go to the seed vascular plant, right? So under seed vascular plant, they are divided into two, remember, gymnosperm and also angiosperm. Okay, all seed plant, okay, all seed plant are heterosporous, regardless they are gymnosperm or angiosperm. So all seed plant are heterosporous, meaning they are producing two different types of spore, megaspore and microspore. Megaspore will give rise to the female gametophyte, which is archegonia containing eggs, and microspore will give rise to the male gametophyte that we call as antheridia with sperm, right? And all seed plant, right, have dominant stage of the life cycle, which is sporophyte dominant. Okay, so seed plant do not depend on water to transfer sperm, right? And usually they undergoes pollination. So seed plant, right? For seed plant, the ovule will develop into seed. So remember, they are all having seed, but there are two types of seed plant: gymnosperm and angiosperm. So both of them are having seed, but how the seed are being enclosed or enveloped, which makes them differ. Okay, so let's go to the gymnosperm. Gymnosperm are lacking of flowers and fruits. So the seed, right, came from the seed of gymnosperm is known as naked seed, right, that develop on scale of cones. So they are not producing flowers and fruit because the seed are naked and not covered by ovary wall. Okay, the phylum under this category is known as phylum Coniferophyta, one of it, right? There are four phylums, so we are going to detail out the phylum Coniferophyta. Example, pines. Okay, so for pines, have tough needle-like leaf with thick cuticle in a cluster of 2 or 5. So Coniferophyta are heterosporous, produce microspore and megaspore in separate cones, or we call as strobilus. The male cone, or known as staminate cone, are smaller than the female cone. So the female cone is larger compared to the male cone, and dominant stage of the life cycle is the sporophyte generation. Okay, and what happened to the gametophyte generation? Gametophyte generation reduced and depending on sporophyte. Okay, like this one, this coniferous tree or the pine tree. So the whole tree here we call as the sporophyte. This is the sporophyte, and this is the gametophyte. So this is the female cone, or known as the ovulate cone, and this is the staminate cone, or the male cone. So you can see the female cone is larger than the male cone. Okay, then do not need water for fertilization, right? Because they are produce large amount of pollen, therefore they are adapted to live on land compared to fern. So wind can help to spread their seed. Okay, they have water conducting cell, the tracheids. Okay, water conducting cell, tracheids. Okay, the second category is angiosperm. So angiosperm have only a single phylum, right, which is phylum Entophita. Okay, angiosperm produce flowers and fruits, right? So the ovule is enclosed within ovary. So this is what makes gymnosperm and angiosperm is different. Okay, angiosperm, the ovule is enclosed within the ovary. Seed develop from the ovule, and wall of the ovary will thicken and form fruits. So like buah mangga, right? So biji mangga is the seed developed from the ovule. So buah mangga is actually the buah that we ate is actually from the ovary that has thickened and formed the fruits. Okay, again, the sporophyte generation is the dominant stage of the life cycle, and gametophyte generation will reduce. The female gametophyte will form a single multinucleated cell that called as embryo sac, right? Whereby the male gametophyte will develop into the pollen grain. So the detail we will learn in chapter reproduction. and development, chapter 9. Okay. Okay, all angiosperm are heterosporous. The microspore form the male gametophyte. The megaspore form the female gametophyte. The sexual reproduction is using flowers. Alright. So flower will attract insect and pollinators. Therefore, they are not totally depending on wind like gymnosperm. Thus, they are producing less amount of pollen compared to gymnosperm because they are not totally depending on wind because they have other pollinators like insects and also animals. Okay, asexual reproduction can be happen through vegetative reproduction like tuber, stolon, budding, and many others, which we are going to detail on in chapter 8. Okay, the vascular tissue for angiosperm has become more specialized. The xylem has a vessel element and the phloem has the companion cell. Thus, also they do not need water for fertilization like the lower stage of plant. Remember, bryophyta, the hepatophyta, monilophyta, they are still need moist environment, but for gymnosperm and angiosperm does not rely on water for fertilization. Production of ovule and growth of pollen tube and the formation of seed is faster compared to gymnosperm, right? And as for angiosperm, they are undergoing double fertilization where it produces a zygote from the sperm fused with an egg and another sperm fuses with polar nuclei that will produce primary endosperm nucleus that we call as triploid. So the detail also we are going to detail out in chapter 8. Okay, so we can see here the life cycle of angiosperm. Okay, one phylum in angiosperm, phylum Entophyta. You can see after fertilization it produces zygote. The zygote will develop into the sporophyte, which is the endosperm. Okay, so one of the sperm will fertilize with the egg to produce zygote, and one of the other sperm will fertilize with the polar nuclei to produce triploid cell that we call as endosperm, primary endosperm. Okay, all right. So the flowering plant or the angiosperm has one phylum, Entophyta, and it's divided into two, eudicote and monocot. So for eudicote, it has embryo with two cotyledons, and for monocot, the embryo is with one cotyledon. Okay, so this is different between monocot and also eudicote. Both are fall under phylum Entophyta. So you can see one cotyledon for monocot and two cotyledons, right, for eudicote. And you can see also the difference in terms of the leaf venation, right, where for monocot they have parallel veins and for eudicote they have net-like veins. Okay, and you can see also the arrangement of the vascular tissue is different between monocot and eudicote for the stem cross section, where for the vascular tissue for stem it is scattered and the vascular tissue for eudicote stem is arranged in ring. Okay, all right, and lastly you have here, okay, lastly you have here the difference between simple summary about non-vascular plant, seed vascular plant, and seed plant, right? In terms of the gametophyte, the sporophyte, and the phylum. For non-vascular plant, the phylum are phylum Bryophyta and phylum Hepatophyta. Example, Marchantia. For seedless vascular plant, the phylum are phylum Monilophyta and also phylum Lycophyta. And for seed plant, we are referring to phylum Coniferophyta and phylum Entophyta. So for non-vascular plant, remember the dominant stage of the life cycle is gametophyte is dominant. The gametophyte shape is thallus, flat thallus. Remember, we have separate thallus for male and female gametophyte. The sporophyte is reduced, which is small in size and depending on the gametophyte, right? And then for seed vascular plant, you can see that the gametophyte size is reduced, right? And living independently with the sporophyte. So sporophyte generation is dominant, right? So the gametophyte and sporophyte live independently, and both of them are photosynthetic, right? And for seed plant, also the dominant stage of the life cycle is sporophyte, right? So you can see that the gametophyte reduce and depending on the sporophyte. Okay, so for gymnosperm, the gametophyte is found inside the cone, where the angiosperm, the gametophyte, found inside the flower. Okay, all right. So that is all for kingdom of Plantae. Thank you.